So we'll go ahead and start the next session. So the last session we mentioned about getting outside of your comfort zone. I've never moderated a panel before, so I'm getting right outside of there and trying this. So we're joined with a group here, and today we're really going to talk about, when is the right time to make career changes? Should I stay? Should I go? So with me, I'm joined by Patrick, Chris, Arthur, Anthony, and Greg. So if you could just maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Patrick Redknapp, and I'm an alcoholic. So I'm a drunk alcoholic. Good to meet you. No, so my name is Patrick Redknapp, and I'm an IT marketing consultant. Yeah, it's all yours. And basically, I just work for IT vendors in the VMware ecosystem, telling them what to do.
Okay.
And that's it.
And you usually have a beverage.
Yeah, I do. I'm known for having a few every now and then.
Aren't we all?
You can go.
Oh, I can go. It's Chris Colati, Principal Technologist at Cohesity. I am not an alcoholic because I'm no quitter. So that's the way it's supposed to be said.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta get it right. Was with VMware for 10 years, 10 years before that, VCDX along with Greg, so that's it.
Well, I'm Arthur B. I'm an enterprise solution architect at Rackspace. Have been in the industry for a bit too long, I guess.
This is the perfect
Yeah.
Should you stay or should you go?
Yeah.
Well, try to be as active in the community as I can be. I have never touched alcohol, so I can't use that word. So, but that's me.
Challenge accepted.
You're a control group. It's okay.
Anthony Poe, I'm a senior TAM at Cloud Health, who, as you probably know, were acquired by VMware last year. So prior to that, I spent about 14 years in various VARs, so now joining VMware.
Yeah, Greg Robertson. I'm a cloud solution lead at Dell. Yeah, as Chris said, I'm also VCDX, and yeah, that's kind of what I do. It's as simple as that.
So I guess, Anthony, if we hop into this, you're working for Cloud Health now. You mentioned you work for a couple of different VARs. How did you make that switch, and how did you know it was the right time, really, to make that jump from a VAR to, kind of a...
I think you get to a stage where in your career you're just, you're going through the processes and you don't quite enjoy what you're doing, or don't find it challenging enough. And that's where, at that stage of my life, I was like, well, what's my next step? Do I want to go into another VAR? Do I want to go into a vendor? And funny enough, I actually joined VMware last year in the partner team, so I was in channel, got made redundant, and ended up at Cloud Health, which is really funny. So I spent about two months in between. But it was a stage where in my career, I'd done all the big projects, I was the virtualization lead, and it was I wouldn't say it's a struggle, but it was close to being a struggle to get up every morning and be motivated. And I got to the stage where, if I really want to progress my career, if I really want to do something new, I need to leave. That's what I did. So I joined VMware originally, and then I joined Cloud Health. It's quite a big jump going from traditional infrastructure and a bit of VMware hypervisor going to cloud. So Cloud Health is all about AWS, Azure, GCP, VMware Cloud and AWS, and it's literally a brand new learning curve, and it's very steep curve as well. So, but it's enjoyable. So it's a good move. Totally enjoying what I'm doing now. And if people are in a position where they don't know what to do in their life, if they're an end user, I always tell my friends to go end user into a VAR, because that'll give you the best spectrum. And then from a VAR, if you want to go into a vendor, that's what you do.
Yeah. Now, have any of the panel, have you had similar experiences in terms of jumping, or?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. I think that's why Mike wanted me on this one a little bit. So I was the same. I started out as a customer. So I was a customer for 8 years. I went to a VAR because that was the first logical jump, and then went to VMware for 10 years, and then VMware Cohesity. It's different every time, right? So I spent 8 years at the customer side, and I spent 10 years at VMware, and each time it was, even within the organization, it's always about where can I go next. Like, I get bored. I'm a boredom. Do enough things, you build enough stuff, and you go, all right, do the same thing, kind of get up in the morning. The Century one was different. We all know that story. That was a necessity. But I think it's everybody's take on it approach is different. You have different life events that happen, and either it's a company goes bankrupt and you have to find a job, or it's I'm just not happy doing what I'm doing. Like I'm just not excited to get up in the morning, and I'm not motivated, and I'm not enjoying the work. Right? We all want to enjoy what we do.
Yeah. I mean, and so to that end, I mean, is there a big difference? Do you guys see a big difference in terms of like those that hop frequently, that have a career where they jump every year or 6 months versus those longer terms? I mean,
yeah, I think it's all dependent on where people sit. So there is a danger. It was a person I used to work with who said you should change either role or jobs every 2 to 3 years. And so you might not realize it, but you get very stagnant. You're going through the processes, and you become the person known for just that, and then you're not allowed to do other things. So I think it's good to try and change it up, try and decide, okay, well, yeah, am I stuck here? What should I do? I mean, the previous panel you guys were saying about, what should people learn next? And it's amazing, there's a amount of things where I try and continually learn things. I always try and learn, just use certifications as something to learn something new. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's the thing, is people will sit and they're like, okay, I'm good at VMware now. You're like, that's great, and it is, it's great, there's nothing wrong with it. But you look at it and you don't realize, like I've realized how many VMworld have been doing, I think all of us have. And you look back and you're like, gosh, I'm back here already. And that's the thing, you look back and you think, gosh, I was, I remember the vSphere 1.0s and stuff like that. And you think, so much has changed. But people that are doing the same things are like, okay, I was really good and I was really good at this. And you realize 5 years down the line, you're still doing the same stuff. But, now people are talking about AWS, they're talking about Google, and even if you still have to be that vSphere person, now you have to be able to compare against other things. And that's where maybe changing jobs, you get a new perspective, and you have to learn something new, or either by force, where everybody gets either their role gets moved, or they get cleared out of the company, or companies merge. There's so many things where everybody's really changing that if you don't learn something new, when that inevitable comes that they close down your team, or you move into a new, or you want to change jobs, and you think, actually, I don't know that skill now. Just the simple thing of saying, okay, well, let me start learning something new. Let me, people say, I've got a lot of people through my job, I've got to do a lot of AWS things. People think, oh, well, Dell and AWS, and that's the thing where you've actually got to learn other stuff. It's people can't understand why you're learning a competitor's stuff. You're like, because how can you not learn a competitor's stuff? I don't understand why not. And that's the thing where people just need to learn the basics. If you don't know it, learn 5 services from your competitors. And you're not going to try and bring them down and say, well, this is a. But if you can't understand your competitor, how can you know that yours is a better solution or a comparable solution?
I think I'll second what you're going to say, because you said, because one of those things, I have been in a situation where I was in a job for 11 years, and then that organization closed down. It was every year, it was like, upgrade certain products, then by the time you're done with that cycle, the next cycle came again, because there are 2 to 3 technologies that you had to do, and I did that years after year. And then the company closed. I became Greg's colleague, by the way.
We're sorry.
I do apologize.
See, good things. Good things happens when you work with Greg. Because after that, I've been in different.
I'll pay you later.
But after 2 or 3 years, I've been in different organizations since then, and that basically means that I've been in different roles as well.
Yeah.
And that forces you to think, learn, and apply that. Technologies, whatever you're learning, to whatever you're doing, and that keeps you interested in things. There also comes a point where sometimes, technology aside, there are the atmosphere that you're in that also forces you to rethink, if you should be working there or not. And one thing I would like to say to everyone is that sometimes we get too scared of changing a job.
Yeah.
Especially, I would say that this community especially is very supportive. If you are in such a situation. But still, you just have to trust yourself to be able to put in the effort when you do that. So if something comes along, just think that, the situation you are in now, is that worth staying? Is it actually, again, do you force yourself to go and work at that place? If that's the case, then maybe a good thing is to change to whichever technology comes along. You just have to work harder, but in the end, you'll be much happier.
So maybe it's kind of like a cost-benefit analysis of all the things, the people, the technology, your daily life, all those different pieces that you do. So, I mean, Patrick, you've obviously had many different roles in the community. I mean, what do you see as far as, like, you know, the amount of, like, long-term versus short-term, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, being a consultant, sometimes you have long-term contracts, sometimes you have short-term, sometimes you have both.
Yeah.
I had a period where I've had contracts that have lasted many, many years, and they kind of put you in a rut that you get stuck in where you're just focusing on that one product and the evolution of that product, and you're only really working with whatever technologies your contract is having you actually address. But you need to look at expanding your skill set along the line, because I definitely, my personal experience is I got stuck in the area of backup. And this guy, I got stuck in the area of backup, which is fine. But you know, I would say that definitely my skill set was very focused in that area. And I think that going back to the previous panel where we were talking about setting yourself a goal every year, you know, you need to look at being outside your comfort zone and look at where your skills maybe need honing, or you need more training, or you just need to focus a bit more and actually put that as part of your goal.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to Greg's point earlier about, you know, getting kind of pigeonholed almost sometimes, or whatever the term is, just you're known as the backup guy now, right? You don't want to be just a backup guy. You need to be more than that, right? You know. Through all of our careers, and both short and long term, I mean, I'm always curious too about, you know, what's the work-life balance that you feel in these jobs, right? How much does that play in your decision whether you move careers, and how does it affect you long term, short term? Like, how do you see that play out?
Actually,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I actually did a rebrand bag as well a few years ago on just that topic, because I was just not getting the time for my family all the time, and some illnesses also followed. But in fact, after that, I started traveling quite a lot, even though money enough.
That could happen too.
Yeah.
You can change jobs to shorten you.
Exactly. But so I went in different phases. One company I did back-to-back countries, and you know, all that kind of thing, constant traveling. And then I changed job just to fix that. And then that job forced me to be at home. I only went to the office 12 times in 2.5 years.
Wow.
So that was a complete opposite. And now I'm in a job where I go to office 2 times a week. And that's the right balance, I think. You know, you do office days, but also so traveling and all of that has to be a balance. But because family is important, you have to remember that you will find a job that fits. I mean, there are so many options now.
Yeah.
You can find a job that fits your lifestyle, but family, if you don't spend time with them, you will never get it again. And another thing is that you can find ways. We find efficiencies when we design systems all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We pick a thing and then say, okay, how we can make this efficient. You can make your processes efficient as well. TV, if you just evaluate everything, whatever time of day you spend on what, do you need to spend the time on it? Maybe there are better things to spend your time on. You just do that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, you know, work to live, not live to work. I think everybody does something different to wind down, and we talk a lot about this when we had the session at VMworld, and we're doing, or VUS, and we have another one tomorrow. But we asked Mohit about this in a V-Expert breakfast at VMworld, and his answer was the best. He actually said that burnout was bullshit. And he had a valid reason. He said it's primarily, it comes down, and he's not wrong, primarily it comes down to people don't know how to manage their own time. And it's exactly what you said. And he talked about his story where, you know, he was traveling a lot, and his kids were basically like, oh, I guess we'll see dad when we see dad, right? That was his aha moment. So for us, it's all different, and I'm one of those guys who shuts down. Like, at a certain time at night, I fire up the PlayStation, I get online with a couple of buddies of mine, and that's what we do for 2 hours. That's just the end of the day. That's, you know, and then I watch TV with my wife for a little while. Like, I can't work, you know, 27 hours a day. It's just not in me. But I'm also too old to do it anymore.
You need to switch off.
Yeah, you do. You got to turn off. I mean, I said this to somebody at the session in the US, and they were appalled. They said, well, how do you shut off email? I said, I literally go in email, and there's a button on Gmail that says, turn off. Like, I disabled the entire work email at 7 o'clock at night, and they couldn't believe I did that. What's the means to get a hold of you? I said, if my team, the people on my direct team, need to reach me, they have my phone number, and they can call it. Like they're not gonna send an email anyway. Or Patrick just sends shit all night long.
He actually told me off about that. He said, dude, you can't phone me up at 7 a.m. I go,
I wake up and it's like, why is there 7 messages from Patrick?
I think there's also a risk of, and I mean, maybe this is perspective, but seemingly there does seem to be a culture in the US of people taking their phones and their laptops on
Very
holiday.
different.
Where and it's almost unexpected that I'm originally South African, and it was the same culture as almost you that you would have very short holidays, and someone's like, you've got your phone, you're checking emails, you're checking, and it's a crazy culture. But when you're surrounded by that, you don't know any different. Whereas Europe was very different. You come across and you've got holidays, and everyone's like, why are you taking your? I remember looking at my phone, and my first boss, credit to him, said, why are you responding to emails? You're on holiday. I don't want you responding to emails. And that's a really great thing to go. As you're saying, oh, okay, this is stopped now. This is the weekend, or it's at time at night or whatever. Why are you responding to emails? And it's something I've had loads of people respond and go, oh, I sent you a mail at 9 o'clock. I'm like, well, that's good. I finished work at 5:30. I responded to you first thing in the morning. That's
How
my
many people
job,
start
right?
using the auto signature that says, my time zone may not be the same as yours?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I see that a lot now. I actually just put it on mine the other day. So.
But it's crazy.
True.
It's crazy.
Other people don't realize it, right? So, like, I used to make the joke that the East Coast time zone is almost one of the hardest because we get friends in the UK who are emailing early in the morning, and then you get people at 9 o'clock at night that's only 6 o'clock on the West Coast. If you don't know if you can't shut it off, like, it's literally 16 hours a day. Like, I just won't, you can't do it.
Did that play into any of your decisions when you make these changes from organizations, like in terms of like that work-life balance that you're feeling the pressure
I think
from?
it can. I mean, I spoke to a few people even today about it, and it's all about also the ability to be able to work from home and things like that, and where that is, because there is a lot of. I've got a lot of customers who will, and I think we all come from different consulting backgrounds, and you come in and the customer's like, I need everybody in 5 days a week. And you're like, okay, you come in 5 days a week, but there's no point. There's no point to this. Whereas, as you say, then they're like, oh, but you didn't respond to my email. You're like, well, I've got to travel an hour or whatever. I mean, the US is worse. You've got to travel to and from these places. Well, if I'm working from home so many days a week, then firstly, it means I'm probably going to log on before, because I'm probably going to log on when I'm traveling in, when I would be traveling in. I can come in and I can actually log on, and then once the day finishes, I'm not running for the door. I can go, oh yeah, I can join that call for half an hour, or I can respond to that email, because I can literally go respond to the email, finish this meeting, and that's it. I'm straight away. I'm playing PlayStation or spending time with your kids or your wife or whatever you're doing to decompress, and that's really where it is. And the culture is slowly changing. As I say, it's relatively good in Europe, where they're saying, okay, there's this work-life balance, and you should take these holidays and stuff like that. But if people will believe, I have to respond to emails, I'm going to do this, and they're just setting up a really bad thing for themselves, because then you're thinking, oh, well, everyone's going to respond to you. Like that, as you say, Chris was saying, that if you're setting up a team where people are saying, if you can walk away from a holiday or even this conference, and someone can't handle you being away for that, and this is a critical problem.
Nobody's we're all expendable anyway.
All granted that critical problems. It's like the whole data center burns down, someone's going to phone.
Does anybody really believe that, if I was gone, things would burn down?
It's very client specific though. It's very company specific. Some of them expect you to be available all the time, and it really depends. Especially if you're working from home in the UK, you're dealing with a client in America or a client in Australia or wherever. Some of them expect you to work on their terms, and other ones don't. So sometimes you have to define that, and you have to set your boundaries. Otherwise, you're working constantly.
I think it also depends on, say, your management, the company's management. So my line manager, for example, for this job, I said, well, I have the same, dual SIM phone. He said, no, get another phone. He told me to get another phone, to put the SIM in that one, and say after work, just put that somewhere else. I said, yeah, that's a good point. I will do that. And I did. Another thing is that your phone always has those notifications coming up. And you have to turn that off. There's a good book actually. I can't remember the writer's names, but it's called Make Time. That's a good quote that if you go through it, when it goes through, ironically, it's written by Google engineers with all those technologies coming out. But yeah, they go through the same process saying that turn notifications off and all those kind of things. The things that you don't need to do, otherwise you can't focus.
But it always comes back to you make the decision. Like nobody forces me to turn something on or turn anything off, right? But I think the first vacation I took this year, I uninstalled applications from my phone. I literally removed them. I removed Twitter, I removed LinkedIn because it was easier than going through and disabling notifications. It was just easier to go delete the damn app and put it back on when I get home. And I did the same thing with email. The only reason I had my device was it was a very large family vacation and we needed comms for, making sure everybody got the dinner on time and stuff like that. So I didn't have a choice. I had to have communication. But again, text message or somebody on the team had a problem, they knew I would probably be drunk if you called me, but you get what you get. Is that
But just set those boundaries, right?
Yeah.
I think technology is a good and a bad thing these days. It's good because it allows you to do flexible working and working from home. And when I started working, it was literally everyone was in the office because internet was bad or you couldn't get VPN access or like. But the problem about now is that everyone's connected, which means you've got to make that conscious decision to switch it off. Otherwise, you don't switch off. Literally, you'll be getting messages every night. And for me, my head office is in Boston, Cloud Head Office. So literally, I would finish at 5 o'clock, and those guys would just be midway through the day. So, and then we've got offices in Australia. So you've got to find that boundary where I want to work from home. I might turn my phone on at 8 o'clock. I might turn it off at maybe 6, 7 o'clock. But it's literally you have to put the voice down. Otherwise, you're going to find that you just end up annoying your wife, which does happen.
Don't do that.
Annoying your
Especially
kids
if it's out at dinner.
Yeah.
No.
You've got to be aware of the people you're working with as well. Where their boundaries are, where their limitations, because and pretty much everyone here works not just in one time zone.
No, everybody on my team.
Yours.
There's 2 East Coast on my team plus a Midwest. So it's even within the team we're an hour or 2 apart. So and we make the mistake. I'll email John Holmbrand too early, and he'll reply back, "I wasn't out of bed yet." It's or when we're traveling, we screw it up because we don't remember. He's in Florida right now, so he's 6 hours behind setting up Ignite. So we're trying to deal with multiple trade shows and stuff.
I mean, it sounds pretty consistent. I mean, it's difficult, but it's okay to push back too, right? It's okay for us. It's almost as important in some ways as salary, right? As being able to push back and say, this is what my expectation is, and does that match up with your management, with your company culture? And that plays in then to the bigger discussion, kind of where we started with of, when's the right time to make those jumps? What's the next path?
If you set that expectation with a team or a manager and they don't like it, that's probably not where you want to be.
Yeah, that can throw a big red flag.
Yeah, definitely. It's a red flag, at least for me, that, when I went on vacation, I actually sent an email that let everybody know, I'm uninstalling applications, so, here's my backups. I think I got replies back that said, that's a really good idea. I never thought of doing that before. Have a great vacation. It wasn't, nobody pushed back on it. Nobody said, well, you have to be available. So, I think if you set the expectation and it's a red flag, then.
Yeah, and if you go away and the job actually can't be done by somebody, it actually looks really bad on you. Because if you can't do something and actually explain it to people that they could actually do what you're doing, then you're probably not doing very well either. Because someone should be able to explain, or you should have put down the information or shared it enough. If you go away and everything's going to fall apart, it's either you're hiding something under the carpet or something's going wrong. And that's also then, it's not a good thing for you. So also your stress levels must be up.
Yeah, I don't want to be the only person who knows something because then the phone doesn't stop ringing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a dangerous thing to get into.
So if I bring that back in, right, and being the instrumental person, is there a time in your career when you jump from place to place? What was the thing the impetus that made you make the jump? Right? Is it being that person?
Doesn't count.
Well, no. The company just does.
It kind of does, but
right?
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
the George of the company.
I was kind of like Anthony was saying, I went from essentially a customer into a consulting role, and it was the same idea of changing jobs and you want to try something new. But it was I got sick of being the person who was on call, all the place and I had to do this, and you wanted to do something new, and actually it came about where a lot of the VMware culture was starting to build and all this new stuff, and actually a manager gave me VMware thinking that it was like the day-to-day job. It's like, you can log on to these exec servers, and it ended up obviously really great, but that was the thing, he passed that with me, and I looked at it and I thought, I'm never going to learn more than just building a couple of virtual machines every day. I'm going to have to change this, I'm going to have to take that leap and do this. And it was, as Ether alludes to, we literally did it, and then you've gone from a thing of you drive into the same little office, in your little comfort zone, at your same table.
And now you're finally moderating a panel.
Yeah, you have your 10 cups of tea every day, and then all of a sudden you're a consultant, you're on customer sites, you're getting sent, the four corners of the globe and stuff like that. And it's a big change, but then, actually, the moment you learn and change with that is really beneficial.
One of the jobs that I left was actually because of a manager. It was probably one of the worst horror stories I've ever told people. I mean, I'll give the short story, but it was when I left the customer side, my grandfather passed away, and my manager at the time actually gave me grief for not coming to work instead of going to see him in the nursing home. I shit you not. It was a literal screaming match in the data center where I threw my badge at him and said, there is no way in hell I'm working for you anymore. Like, that's just family first. My family comes first. And it was, I don't know anybody else who's ever had that kind of situation, but it was really weird. But that was the day. I mean, it was 2 weeks after I was gone. Like, he had my resignation right then and there. I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have a job to go to. It was just, this is, like, you want to move on? Done.
Oh, again, the work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
It can be like that sometimes, because I've drama quit before.
You don't see the time.
I literally was sad. I had to watch the film Office Space the night before, and I think that might no joke. I went in for an appraisal with my boss, and he just said some of the most outrageous things, and I just turned around and went, right, I quit then.
And some people are not made to be mad.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Was
saying.
it you?
Like Greg, my story was the same. That after that job, I went into a consulting role and never looked back in a way that went from one community to another. I changed job types because of work-life balance. Then, not been in that kind of situation, but that's exactly what I was saying. That if you are in that kind of situation where the environment becomes such that you just can't do that job anymore, and you're forcing yourself. This community is such that they'll find you a job.
Well, yeah, and that was long before I knew that there really was this community. This was 20 years ago too, so it was even harder.
So don't be afraid doing that. The main thing is that family comes first, and you do the job that allows you to be with your family, and yet enjoy the job that you do.
Don't quit tomorrow. Obviously, try and look for a
There's also almost punches.
You told Brian to quit his job. Find a new job.
I really imagine what it looked like from the outside of the glass in the data center. It was actually in a data center, like two guys yelling.
Well, I guess to that point though, right? I mean, like if you, to wrap up this panel, right? If you could give somebody advice that is considering a job change, if there's one simple, if there's such a thing, it's simple. What kind of advice would you give them about making those changes?
Go down the line.
Go down the line.
I would say definitely evaluate where you want to be in your job and where you want to go, and just make sure that you're happy with how your career progression is going, because if you don't regularly evaluate that, then you can't really grow your career.
You need a roadmap.
Yeah, you do.
I'd say if you have a passion, follow that first. It may lead you away from what you're doing today completely. I mean, 180-degree shift. I've seen people do that. That would be my best advice. Is if that's something, if you get your eye on something, and it has nothing to do with technology or anything else, try it, follow it, and learn something outside of technology. I mean, I had to learn how to be a bookkeeper. To do QuickBooks for my wife. It's just it works your brain differently just to do other stuff, just in general. So
I would say that like you were saying, that keep evaluating every day. Maybe take a vacation or something. Just time to yourself to reevaluate exactly what you want to do. But the old adage that when you're in a job, think of the next job, and that's very true. I mean, you need to be doing that, and in a way that when you do that evaluation, that's what you're doing. To prepare yourself for that job. Don't just leave your job just like that. Try to move when you want to move, rather rather than when you're being pushed out or have to be you're forced out basically, and that's how you prepare for it.
I think it's you've got to trust yourself to take that leap of faith. Sometimes everyone gets comfortable doing what they do, and then even after evaluating the job and thinking it's actually a good idea, they still have that niggling feeling actually what's going to happen. It's a risk if I move, if I like it. You've just got to trust your gut feeling. If you've done the evaluation, the role looks good. Sometimes it might be too good to be true. Take that leap of faith, because even if you do take that leap of faith, you've made that first step. And even if you don't like that job you move into, then at least you've taken that first step. Now you know that how to evaluate the next role, what you want to look for, what you don't want, and then you take another step. So it's that first step is the most important, because some people just are too afraid to take that first step.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've never had a job where I've actually been, like, companies closed down and stuff like that. But I always look at it in that way of, if I got told tomorrow your job's cut, would I be able to find a job? And what would that job probably need? And sometimes you're right, sometimes you've got to look at what your passion is, because then it can direct you in a good way. But if if your job was closed down tomorrow, and that company's like, oh, we haven't got any other roles, what would you think your skill set would be? You know, Alice was talking in the previous panel around, learning Python or learning different things, or and you don't have to be perfect at it. This is the thing also, is everyone thinks, oh well, you have to be the best at this for me to change the job. You really don't. You have to have a basic understanding of do I have enough to be able to talk in an interview about Python or whatever the technology is to get the job, and then learn on the job. And that's the thing, is that we've all faked it till we made it. That's the thing, is that you've got to think, okay, if I'm going to lose my job tomorrow, what would the next job probably require me to do? And you're right, on the previous panel you guys were talking about soft skills, and that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to do too much tech heavy stuff, and that for the last 9 months I haven't done any certifications or anything like that, which for anybody who knows me, that takes a lot of effort. And you're like I'm actually going to learn business skills, I'm going to learn communication skills and things like that, and the finance piece of it and the business side of it, because it is lacking in piece. And if I lost my job, would I be able to talk to that business side? Because am I known as too tech heavy kind of person, where I should be able to also be able to talk to the business?
That makes a lot of sense. Well, great. I want to thank each of you for joining our panel today.
Can I ask a very quick question?
Sure.
Yes. Greg, earlier you said you were originally South African, and you happened to wear the South Africa flag the day after you beat England in the World Cup final. Is that just a coincidence?
It's just a pure coincidence. That
We're glad at least dressed up in quick pants.
Hey, this is work from home balance. Normally it's like pajamas.
You're only dressed from the waist down every day.
Just a collared shirt, and then
All right. Well, great. Give us a few minutes, and we'll get this going for the next session. So thanks, everybody.
All right.